If you want your home cinema to feel like a real cinema, you need to hear MAG Theatron. With more than 20 years' experience in commercial theatres worldwide, MAG's award-winning speaker systems deliver the same cinematic impact, now purpose-built for residential use. Made in Ukraine and engineered in-house, up to 95% of every transducer is MAG's own design. From high SPL loudspeakers to infrasonic subwoofers and DSP-loaded amps, MAG Theatron is the real deal. Exclusively available in Australia through Integrate Unlimited. If you've ever wished for a design partner without the overhead, meet Colosseum. Launched in 2024, Colosseum is a white-label design and engineering service built specifically for integrators, whether you're new to the game or running million-dollar installs. They turn basic floor plans into detailed, high-impact cinema-ready documentation, brand agnostic, collaboration first, and led by industry veteran Paul McLean. I've seen the work myself. This is world-class support for serious cinema projects. Colosseum, your behind-the-scenes design team. Hello and welcome to Master Integrator, the podcast where we explore the business of smart home technology, from design to delivery and everything in between. I'm your host, Paul Skelton. Before we begin, a quick thank you to our sponsors, Integrate Unlimited, the exclusive Australian distributor of MAG Theatron, Colosseum, the documentation wingman that you didn't know you needed, and Connected Magazine, your trusted source for smart home and AV industry news. Now, I get asked a lot of questions in this job. Most of them aren't about Master Integrator or even about technology. They're about CEDIA, what it's doing behind the scenes, where the apprenticeship is at, what's happening with industry recognition, and whether any of it is actually going to make a difference. So for this episode, I decided to flip the format. I asked Sean Carroll, the editor of Connected Magazine, to jump into the host seat and fire away. What followed was an open conversation about where the industry's at, why I launched Master Integrator as a business, and what it will take to build something more sustainable, more recognised, and frankly, more respected. We also somehow covered sandwiches, basketball, and burnout along the way. This is Master Integrator. Here's Sean and me.
Oh, welcome on. Slash, thanks for welcoming me on to the Master Integrator pod. I guess, how are you?
I feel almost at home.
Yeah, how's it been? How's the Master Integrator pod been for yourself? Welcome to the world of podcasting.
Yeah, well, I like to see myself as a bit of a trendsetter. And I figured there's this emerging thing called podcast that no one else really seemed to be doing. And I figured I've got to jump on that. And as I've said to a couple of people, a middle-aged white guy with a podcast seems really, really novel. And I wanted to be one of the first.
Well, it's podcasting or cycling, and I'm happy you've chosen this career path.
I don't do physical labour or activity. It's just, that's not in my wheelhouse at all. That is a pun.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I guess you had no choice. You had to go into podcasting. Do you want to talk about the Master Integrator a bit? Why you decided to make it, how it's been received, and et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, so basically I've been around the industry for about 20 years. And next year will be 20 years. And I don't know if that's a congratulations statement or not, to be honest. But in all honesty, we're having the same conversations in the industry that we've had for 20 years. It's going in circles. And people who know me well know that I have a very low tolerance when I think something's shit. And talking about the same thing for 20 years falls in the category of shit. So really, I just wanted to kind of have an avenue where I could talk about the things that I thought were going to have a bigger impact on the industry moving forward that we're just not talking about. And that is things like ethical technology design, technology in terms of how it's been used to abuse people, the big issues that are facing the industry, so they can start to look at it now and prepare. And then obviously other things that are happening in the background, like the apprenticeship program and the other education stuff that's happening. And that's a lot of work, but it's also kind of the unsexy stuff in the industry, but that people might not know is happening. So then they'll always sit there and say, well, what the hell are you actually doing? So this is a way for me to say, well, this is what I'm doing.
Yeah, cool. How has it been received both for yourself, having this space to vent by the sounds of it, and then also for your close friends and colleagues in the industry? How's it been for them to have this mouthpiece?
Look, it's actually doing better than I expected. I
Oh,
expected to
no.
have I expected to have a handful of people just kind of maybe check out one episode and then say, "Cool," and move on. But
Mhm.
we're getting, quite a few people listening every single week, and I'm actually receiving feedback from people. So I know they're listening because they're talking to me about what we're talking about in the podcast. There's definitely been feedback too where it's been interesting around things like the ethical technology side, where someone did come to me and say it scared the absolute hell out of them and they didn't know it was a thing.
Yeah.
I'm sitting there thinking, that scares me for a different reason than what they might think.
Yeah.
But it's definitely been received well. And I think it is because we're having those conversations that are beyond, here's a new product.
Mhm.
Let's whinge and bitch about HDMI some more, because don't get me wrong, that can be fun, but it's not new. So
Mm.
it's definitely been received well, which has been good because I think it's giving me an idea of the conversations that people want to have. And it's just letting me kind of facilitate that and find some people who might not know about our industry and get them involved, starting with a conversation and then see how else we can work together.
Well, yeah, beautiful segue. God, you're a natural at this stuff. But I guess hearing these conversations and hearing some of the issues, right from the people who are having the issues, how has that, God, I'm going to sound like a bit of a twat here, but how has that shaped your decisions and your time, obviously, in your important role at CEDIA?
It's funny how you think that one question is what makes you sound like a twat. Where I have years of examples. It's definitely played a role. And I think it's helped CEDIA at a global level to understand what Australia wants to hear more of.
Mhm.
And things like, obviously, the work that we're doing with an apprenticeship program, that's fully backed by CEDIA globally. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to do what I've been doing. But then things like ethical technology design. So that's been something that was incredibly well received at last year's Tech Summit in Newcastle. So we're doing a virtual conference on ethical technology design at the end of July, and it is a subject that's going to be coming back a fair bit. So part of the plans that we're looking at around the apprenticeship too, when we floated the idea past the regulators around ethical technology designs, they actually want to include that now at an apprentice level
Mhm.
and to see how we can actually work that in. So we're getting people understanding the ethics of integration of technology before they're even out there on the tools.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, let's go into the ethical tech design a little bit further. We were both at the CEDIA Tech Summit Tech Plus Business Summit in Newcastle last year. So we obviously heard the first seminar that sort of sparked this conversation. Connector Magazine is working on an article for the next edition on ethical technology design in education. And obviously, we touch on both commercial and residential. So it's a little bit different to the topic that you've talked about. But when it comes to the education side of things, you've got, let's say, 20 young people coming into a room. It's a little bit different to the residential side of things where it's like you've got someone who's agreed to bring this technology into their space and there might be one or two people affected. And I don't want to belittle how much they're affected, but it's 1 to 2 people. Whereas you've got, let's say, 20 people coming into a class, maybe unwillingly, they signed something 2 years ago that says, oh, you're going to be recorded or whatever. But what's sort of happening in this space? Because it is quite dangerous. So, well, what have you been talking about recently with this space?
It's actually terrifying of the things that's been happening. So it goes across a few different things. I mean, the most immediate one, as far as the integrators are concerned,
Mhm.
it is around the idea of informed consent. So many integrators, when you're deploying technologies and you're commissioning systems, you're accepting terms and conditions on behalf of your clients.
Mm.
Does that make you liable? I mean, are you accepting something that they might not have agreed to? Do they understand what you're accepting on their behalf? So there's a lot of questions around that, and that could actually put an integrator in quite a difficult position if it's ever tested in court. So it goes from as simple as that and also fair contract laws, but it also goes through to the tech side. So technology facilitated abuse or technology facilitated domestic violence is a growing issue, unfortunately. At the moment, it's very much at the level of smartphones, and some CCTV systems are now starting to be used in those applications, but it is broadening
Mhm.
and it's a matter of time until that blows up as well. So there's quite a lot to it in terms of the ethical side of what technology can do. And we're now at that point in an industry of just because we can, should we?
Mm.
And I think that's a question that needs to get asked a lot more because we can do some really, really cool shit with technology, but it doesn't mean we should.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, one of our writers, Phil Tan, was at the SecTech show or the Road Show, and he was in Adelaide a couple of weeks ago. And that's obviously security technology, and you mentioned security cameras and CCTV. And one of the sort of biggest innovations that he saw was like we've got all these security cameras, and now AI is becoming a bigger thing. And we've been talking about it integrate for a long time. Where it's like, well, you've got these security cameras, and AI can just, instead of us sitting in a room with 5 VHS tapes, not that I would have any idea what a VHS tape is, just to get ahead of you, Paul. And instead of going through all these old tapes going, oh, did I see this person here? You can just simply ask a large language model to say, hey, scroll through everything. And now it's becoming a lot more of a reality where these companies are selling to integrators at the roadshow. Hey, we've got this AI that sits above everything and just watches all the footage. And you can just now go up to it, just like ChatGPT, and just say, hey, tell me every single person who walked into the store from the hours of 8 to 10 with a red shirt or with a blue jacket, if that's who you're looking for. And scarily, one of the things that was sort of one of the biggest innovations that people were sharing was you can just type in detect abnormal activity. And then so AI is now making a decision where it's like, oh, what's normal? And so as soon as you type in abnormal, then that sort of gets really tricky when it comes to using that as evidence, because AI said, well, this is considered abnormal because, I don't know, this guy picked his nose as soon as he walked into the store because not many people did that, or whatever it may be. And it's a lot more insidious than the little joke I just made. And so does that come into the residential side as well?
It definitely can. I mean, privacy is a massive issue with people. And this goes into something that Shannon Marsh, who I interviewed on this podcast, who kind of flagged with me about this idea of value tensions.
Mhm.
And it is, you can realistically have privacy or you can have security. You can't really have both.
Yeah.
And increasingly people want security, especially, I mean, apparently there's a little bit of a crime wave happening out there at the moment. But people are focused so much more on having their home secured. And obviously people want to be secure in their home. But at the same time, it's where they're most vulnerable. So they expect privacy. But if you have cameras everywhere to ensure security, you can't have privacy. So there's a lot to navigate. And in some areas like that, you can't really navigate it. There is no option. It's either or. So it definitely does play a massive role in homes from that perspective.
Mm. At the top of the pod, you said you like this podcast because you get to come on and talk about issues that aren't really getting solved. And I guess we've sort of finished this ethical technology design topic by saying we don't really know. Oh, you can't have this or that. What is the fix? We can't leave without an answer. Is it governmental, or is it just integrators need to let the clients know everything about these T's and C's? They might be updating every 6 months. So what's the fix?
At this stage, there isn't one. And that's really the scariest part is if
Mm.
we look at AI, for example, we are still so early on in the process. But if you look at where we've come in the past couple of years, it's developing at such a rapid rate, there is no way we could be ahead of it. And by the time we think we are, it's done. It's moved on to the next thing. And unfortunately, from a government perspective, it's incredibly slow moving. So even by the time they kind of get an understanding of what the issue is, they then have to talk to all of the stakeholders and then they have to develop a plan. World's moved on by then. It's
Mm.
too slow. We need integrators to understand the ethical implications of what they're installing, and they need to understand their responsibilities to make sure their clients understand.
Mm.
And realistically, that's the best way an integrator can cover themselves today. That's not to say it's not going to change in the future. It could very well change tomorrow because there might be a new system that's released overnight, as that has happened before. But it is unfortunately a case of we're in a bit of a holding pattern and there's not really any solution at the moment. Yeah, aside from knowing what those ethical issues are. Obviously, ethics is a very subjective term. What
Mhm.
I find unethical might be very different to what you find unethical. I mean, I understand you don't feel shame or embarrassment. I believe there's a term that describes that condition. But yeah, we would have very different ideas of what ethical is. So to understand that alone, you can't just apply your own sense of ethics necessarily. You have to have ethics, but you also need to have an understanding of what could be a trigger point for someone else as well. So there's a strong psychological element now. It's no longer a case of just go to a home and set up a home cinema or whack in a control system. There's so much more to it now. And I think a lot of people have had their head in the sand a little bit about that.
Mm. Well, moving on, if you're happy to as well. CEDIA. What else is CEDIA working on? And I sort of just want to start off by talking about the apprenticeship program that has been much talked about and much written about. Connected Magazine. If you're allowed to plug your episodes, I'm allowed to plug my magazine.
You are shameless. Jeremy would be so proud.
I know. I am shameless with it. I also do a basketball podcast if anyone's interested in that.
Go on. What's it called?
It's called The Deep Two. Get it? Because it's the worst shot in basketball and there's two of us and we get deep. So funny.
I do not get it, and I
yeah.
refuse to.
But yeah, what's going on with the apprenticeship program? Where are we? What are the next steps? And yeah, give us an update.
Yeah, look, the apprenticeship program, I describe it as an overnight success if you consider there's been 20 years of overnights. So I remember being told about this when I first entered the industry. That was 2006, and it was always about there's no formal education pathway into our industry for integrators, for technicians. And when I came across to CEDIA, which is 5 years ago now, that was one of the first things I wanted to focus on. And I can tell you, I had so many conversations with people that went nowhere. I had one very, let's call it blunt conversation with someone when I finally had enough of dealing with them because it was going nowhere. And you just got mixed messages. There was no pathway forward. Luckily, when they introduced the Jobs and Skills Councils at a federal level, that's when it changed. Of course, because as an industry, we like to make things difficult, we do kind of straddle two different Jobs and Skills Councils, which is quite rare. But Powering Skills organisation in particular have really backed what we're doing, and having a few advocates within that organisation has helped because known a few of them from before, before the world ended with COVID. But because of that, they knew what I was trying to do. And they were actually very, very open to what we've been saying. They'd seen or heard about the kind of the shit journey to get to that point. But yeah, they've actually been really good partners and backing us in really, really solidly and just helping to make sure our industry is recognised. It constantly changes though, in terms of what we're looking at any one time. So the plan is still obviously a full 4-year apprenticeship program, nationally recognised, still to be aligned with the CEDIA, CIT and IST certifications, the ACMA open registration and endorsements. We're also working a lot with third-party suppliers. So at the moment, for example, the plan is a student can go through, they can do their C4, Crestron or KNX certification, and that will actually count towards the apprenticeship. So they don't need to then do a separate module. That also helps RTOs and TAFEs because it means they don't actually have to have resources that they just don't have. But recently, we've been getting a lot more support around ideas like the ethical side, but then the accessibility and disability market. So we're actually getting really good support from some of the associations within assistive technology. That's been something that we've been working towards now for about probably 3 or 4 years. We've been pushing into that space, and we're finally getting that recognition. And then the other thing that we are kind of looking to do is to see whether we can actually get a restricted electrical license as part of this as well. So it is disconnect, reconnect, like for like. It's not a case of an integrator getting this and being able to go out and run 240 volt or terminate new GPOs or anything like that. It is, for example, a dimming module's busted, you can swap it out. That's it. So it'll be highly restricted and highly prescribed, but ideally, we want someone to be able to go through this apprenticeship program and walk out and be able to go straight onto a job site and work legally, ethically, and actually be able to make money for their employer. So you don't spend too much time. Obviously, you're still going to have to do some training because someone doing a 4-year apprenticeship is not going to walk out the other end and be this master programmer or system designer. You're still going to have to work with them. But the idea is to actually get rid of all that process that we've gone through for the past 20 or 30 years where we're all self-taught. And put it into a program that's recognised so we can actually get people finally coming into the industry.
Mm-hmm. When we last spoke about this topic, it was around 2027. Is that still target date to get things underway?
So we are included in the 2025 to 2027 roadmap through the Powering Skills under the UEE training package, which would say that the first intake should be Q1 of 2028. There's a lot to do in the meantime, and this is where the industry is going to have to get involved too. So at the moment, it's very much being pushed by myself and Paul Vivian, who's been an absolute gun at this. I mean, I met him purely randomly, and then we might have spoken for half an hour, if that. And then 3 months later, he came to me with a full plan of how we could actually do this. And I'm sitting there going, I didn't even realize that we were doing this. But he had basically answered every question that I had and every frustration that I had. And then from there, he's been an absolute gun and just getting this up and running. So we are far, far better off now than we were even 6 months ago, 12 months ago. It is definitely moving forward, but it is a process that needs more than 2 people. So we have a working group of volunteers within CEDIA who are going to be helping with content creation, things like that. There's still a few steps we need to get through before we get to content creation. The next step will be a series of roundtables that are run through the Power and Skills organisation. We need everyone in the industry to attend those because we need to make sure we have as comprehensive of a picture as possible when we develop this program. And it's not just smart home. We need the commercial guys there. We need the security guys there. We need as many stakeholders as possible so we can actually say, this is all encompassing. This is what it is. And realistically, if you look at residential and commercial at a very basic level of skills, it's the same. So it should be the one qualification for both. But realistically, we need the commercial guys there too, because if they're not, they're going to get left out. And it's that simple. We're at a point where we're not stopping and we're not really going to be held up anymore. We've done that for 20 years. It goes nowhere. This is happening. And it's basically ours to lose now. Connected Magazine is your go-to publication for the commercial and residential AV and smart home industry. Every edition features 3 in-depth product reviews from working integrators. In this edition, the team tests out Shure's SLX 4Q Plus wireless receiver with Dante, Christie's latest 4K home cinema projector, the 860IS, and Sonance's new in-wall speakers, the SA466. Check it all out in the latest Connected magazine, and don't forget to visit the website for more reviews, news, and product releases. Links in this episode's description.
Beautiful. That's great to hear. You excited? You happy? You proud?
I'm tired. Does that count?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you're tired because you've done a lot of work. So, yeah, that's great to hear. And then everything will just fall in place after that. I mean, I'm speaking in such broad strokes. Everything will be perfect after that.
Oh, but, yeah, absolutely. I'm going to retire. I don't need to do anything else.
Insurance will be a big one. And then maybe like the CEDIA recommended practices will become a little bit more highly recommended. Is that sort of the goal there as well?
So there's a couple of things that will need to happen. This whole thing around the apprenticeship's not just to get an apprenticeship. That is a massive first step towards legitimacy as an industry, because in the eyes of so many stakeholders, so many decision makers, we don't exist. We don't count. We don't matter. And in all honesty, they don't really give a shit if we exist or not. So we need to make it a lot of noise to make them care, essentially. So there are things like, once we have the apprenticeship program, the next thing is who's going to train it. So we need to actually be looking now for people within the industry who might be heading towards retirement or sick of being in crawl spaces or don't want to be out on job sites but actually want to pass on the knowledge. We need to start to get those guys trained up to be able to deliver the training in a way that's recognised by the government through their TAE qualification. From there, the next step would be to go for industry recognition. So that is something that we looked at last year. We made a submission to ANZSCO to get an occupation code for integrator. No dice on that one. So New Zealand actually has better representation or recognition of integrators now. Essentially, they recognise everything that we asked for except for the term integrator. To be fair, sometimes trying to talk to these people directly is incredibly hard. But once it got released, it was within 24 hours, I'd already made a case for change. So I've already made a submission for New Zealand. They have said that they will be looking to update their occupation list every year. So that submission is already in for next year's changes. Australia was a little bit harder. They didn't really make any or many changes to do with telecommunications, which is where our occupation code would fall. I have since had a conversation with the people involved, and essentially it's because they don't have any record of an integrator ever calling themselves an integrator in the census. So what that actually means now, that for next August, when the next census comes out is we need everyone in the industry to call themselves an integrator. And all honesty, I don't give a shit if you're the admin worker. Call yourself an integrator. Because this is the only chance we're actually going to have to get that occupation code. And there is a minimum threshold that we need to achieve. And I'm no longer telling people what that is, because I feel like once I do, they sit there and go, well, everyone else will do it.
Mm.
But I actually really don't care what you do in this industry, but on the next census, I need you to call yourself a smart home technology integrator. That's the only way we'll get that code. And when we get that code, that's when we can start to actually get proper insurance programs. We can start to look at the skilled migration pathways that are available. We can start to look at potentially getting on the skill shortage list so we can actually get some government support. That code is incredibly important, and this is our only chance at getting that code.
And so that's smart home technology integrator, those 4 words in that order.
Smart home technology integrator. You could probably get away with home technology integrator or smart home integrator. But one of those 3, it needs to be in the census so we can actually go and say, here you go, it actually exists and here's everything.
Damn. Well, we're all going to be rooting for it next results that come out.
We can watch it like election night.
Yeah. Anthony Green will be up there. We've got 5,000 electricians. Oh, we've got this new category in here coming out of retirement for the next census, I hear.
Well, yeah, to be fair, how long was he retired? About a day?
Yes, that's true. He's still wrapping up the final electorate. That's on 99.2% counted. Final CEDIA point I want to talk about, and I don't actually know how much you can talk about this, not because you can't, but in America, CEDIA launched its first B2C campaign, and I'm very interested in this. How's it all working? How's it been received so early on? And sort of what are you selling to the consumers there?
Yeah, so this is something that CEDIA members and non-members, people in the industry in general, have been saying for a long time, and that is, how is CEDIA talking to the end user? So you're right, it is very, very early days. It is available to CEDIA members in Australia, this campaign that's been put together. I think where a lot of people have been a bit confused is that CEDIA was never set up as a lead generation company. It never was. It was an advocacy group. It was to represent the industry, to make sure they had education, that they were able to network, meet suppliers with integrators. So that was never part of the original plan, is the outreach. That has very much changed. And I will say that is very much being driven by Darryl Friedman, the CEO. That was something he wanted to get up and running when he came on board. And we're at that point now where we are talking more to the end users. And as part of a larger conversation too. So we are talking to end users through this commercial. This is the first element of it. We are talking about the need to engage with a professional integrator and particularly a CEDIA member. But we're also talking to people like architects, building designers, builders, to say to them that its early contractor involvement is an important part of it, because they've all had a bad experience with technology, and I can normally guess the systems that they're talking about based on how long ago that they had the bad experience. But we're going down the way of making sure they can access their CPD points that they need to retain their license to trade, but pushing the fact that they need to be dealing with a CEDIA member specifically, and preferably a CEDIA certified member. And realistically, by doing that approach, I mean, consumers are great, but the architects and the builders have so much influence in the decision of contractors and subcontractors and who works on jobs. We are spending a lot more time and resources focusing on them too, because we also have dedicated channels we can use to talk to them, knowing we can get in front of those people, where with end users, it's a scattergun approach. You're going to get tire kickers. You're going to get people who look at it and go, cool. But if we're talking to architects and about exactly what integrators can do, if something gets flagged as part of a project scoping document, they will actually know, that's within the remit of an integrator, and these are the integrators that I recommend. Go from there.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's, hey, do you have a garage that we can shrink by 30%? Oh, you don't? Whoa.
Yeah, or the belief that an integrator is someone who installs automatic garage doors. And that still happens now. That was a thing 20 years ago. It's still a thing now.
Damn. But it's very exciting. The architect market, you've dealt with them a little bit. Is it promising, this B2C/B2A advert?
It all depends on the architect.
Yeah.
So there are some architects who simply do not give a shit. and they never will.
Mm.
And there are others who are very, very open to learning, but they still struggle with the concepts. And that comes down to the fact that it just hasn't been explained properly or well to them in the past.
Mhm.
Me personally, I love the building designer market because a lot of these people, they've had real world experience in something other than building design.
Mhm.
And they want to have conversations about how else they can serve their clients. And they have a really good understanding already of how systems can work together. They might not just know it as integration. So I find working with them and talking to groups like the Designers Association, the conversation can actually flow a lot more because we seem to be talking the same language.
Mm.
So I think there's a good opportunity there to use building designers a lot more than we currently are.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, next point, I guess, what are your focuses in the immediate future? You got roadshows coming up. How's planning for the Tech Plus Business Summit coming?
Well, the Tech Plus Business Summit,
Is it called that? Because I know.
it's just, you can call it the Tech Summit. I'll let
All
you
right.
call it the Tech Summit.
Cool.
Just
Cool.
special permission just for you.
Its official name is the Tech Plus Business Summit in all written dialogue, but sure.
Um, yes, well, it is 28th to the 30th of October on the Sunshine Coast. We'll have the CEDIA Awards night there as well on the 29th, where we've actually just been working through judging those submissions. We're kind of mid-process, and
Mhm.
the business categories are being judged currently while we talk. So it's definitely coming together. It's a slightly different format than last year. There is a pretty big focus towards full-day education
Mhm.
courses this year. We'll have some new courses like an advanced rack build course there this year.
Cool.
So we'll have that. We will still have the tabletop, and we'll have a few panel sessions there too, where we'll have people from Power and Skills Organisation and a couple of the other regulators coming in to talk a little bit about what we're doing from that perspective. Yeah, so that's definitely happening. We have the ethical conference in July. We have some networking education coming up in August, which will be a virtual multi-day training. Because obviously networking is incredibly important within system design, and I don't think I'm speaking out of turn when I say not enough people do it well. Not enough people do it passably, let alone well. So that is definitely a focus that we're trying to push out there, especially aligned with our residential networking specialist certification, which was launched last year. So that's out there. Aside from that, I mean, most of my time I'm on calls with different regulators, different industries. I speak to the disability sector in particular a lot. I speak to the education side of things to make sure we actually have some launch partners that we can work with. And then I do a lot of time where I sit in front of a microphone and I talk.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, if you didn't like meetings enough, you probably shouldn't have started a podcast and pumping it out once a week. But
We
we'll
all
go.
make mistakes. We all make mistakes.
It was that or cycling. It was that or cycling. Yeah, beautiful. Well, you sound very busy.
I'd like to think that I can sound busy even if I'm not, because it makes people think I'm busy.
God, I hate those people.
No, to be honest, I do too.
Real busy. Yeah, yeah.
And I like to kind of get those people riled up.
Cool. Were there any topics you wanted to talk about that I didn't touch on?
Yeah, look, I think everything we've spoken about, it comes down or comes back to how CEDIA continues to operate in Australia. And we're talking about the apprenticeship. We're talking about, well, we have the current Cert 4 that's been ratified for Victoria, and that will start to be rolled out as well. Realistically, though, it's all going to come down to engagement from the industry. And without engagement from the industry, it all goes away. It gets difficult when you look at the size of CEDIA globally, and then you see how few members we have in Australia and how much focus they've actually put on Australia by having me here in the market, by all the work that they let me do with the government, kind of let me do what I need to do.
Mhm.
Other countries don't get that, and that they don't have the resources, and they'll have members there too. But with having me here do this, the only way that that continues is if we get more members. If we actually have the members who are members engage with what we're trying to do from an apprenticeship perspective. So we need people to volunteer their time to help with course creation, to turn up to the steering or the roundtables that the PSO will be running in a few months. And I know that some people think that I'm being a little bit, I won't say histrionic, but maybe dramatic when I say that essentially if we don't have that membership growth, then all of this will go away. But that is just plain truth, is that if the industry doesn't support it, then it goes away and it will never happen. Because if I'm not here in the role, there is no heir apparent, there's no successor behind me. And if CEDIA is not in a position to be able to deliver this, then who does? So yes, it's a shameless push to say people need to join, but in all honesty, fucking join.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, it's you might look at 2028 and go, it's so far away. But if you've been waiting for 20 plus years, what's 3 more years when you've actually got some real progress coming?
Yeah, basically, a lot of people will sit there and look at CEDIA membership and say, what's in it for me? Well, what's in it for you at this point is having an industry. Because this is our last chance to get recognized and have that occupation code. It's our last chance to really have industry insurance programs, because so many people listening to this, so many people in the industry, you have no insurance. You think you do, but if your insurance provider has put you down as an electrician and you don't have your A grade, you have no insurance. But without having me here, without having CEDIA here, that's not going to happen. And for the cost of membership to ensure that you actually have an industry, it's kind of worthwhile.
Yeah. You're doing good stuff. Paul, next time I see you will be at the Integrate, I'm sure.
Yes. Yeah, I'll be floating around. We won't have a stand there this year, but I'm definitely going to be up there talking to people and getting in their way on their stands.
Are you going to be, do you have a panel this year? I remember last year you were having a panel discussion, no? Yeah. Just pressing the flash.
I'm just going to be a floater.
Nice. I love a floater. Well, I'm sure as I'm also floating, I'll bump into you and we will continue this conversation.
We will share a knowing glance from across the other aisle and then walk the other way, knowing it's better not to talk to each other.
I thought you were going to say we'll share a knowing glance. Everything will slow down. We'll hear some lovely soft string music in the background and just hover towards each other. For the coolest dap of all time. God, I love that. We're from different generations.
Are we?
Yeah.
I like to think that I'm from a generation unto myself.
Yeah, well, more power to you, man.
To be fair, I've been a 75-year-old man since I was the age of 15, and I don't like people on my lawn, especially kids, and I don't like it when they talk and they sound utterly stupid. I went to a new barber the other day, and he asked me if I fucked with sandwiches. What he meant was, do I like sandwiches? And that alone confused me because I don't know why he was asking me that question, but I've never been asked if I fuck with sandwiches before.
There's a soft center there. Do you have like a classic outro? Like, do you say something like, oh, stay fresh, guys? Or like, do you rub your beard into the microphone?
A bit of ASMR with the microphone. No, but I do occasionally like to ask just questions to make people think. So I did wrap up by asking someone recently if they thought I was a good person. Do you think I'm a good person?
No, but that was their question. Ask me another question. Ask me another wrap-up question.
Well, surely you have to ask me the question if you're the one who's
the
interviewer. Yeah, but I get to talk after the funky music plays and then I get to kind of shit all over you.
Right. I'm looking forward to that. Well, on my podcast, and this is going to be completely irrelevant to you, I always ask everyone I interview, if you had to have any game-worn jersey from any basketball game, whether it be international, America, Australia, and have it for free, right? What jersey would you pick and why? So, Paul, are you able to answer that question?
I don't do sport.
Maybe you should come up with a wrap-up question like, what's your favorite speaker of all time? That's very topical, isn't it? And then you would ask me, and I would say, God, it's got to be Winston Churchill. And then you would just give me the flat, no laugh stare. You want Jamo, but you got Wilson. Whatever. That's a great wrap-up. It fills me with joy. Paul, have a lovely day.
Probably not. That was me answering questions from Sean Carroll. And if you've ever wondered what's really going on behind the scenes with CEDIA, the apprenticeship, or this podcast, now you know. None of this work is simple. Some of it takes years. But if we want this industry to be taken seriously by government, insurers, educators, even clients, we need to stop thinking small and start acting like a profession. That's what Master Integrator is about. That's what CEDIA is about. And it's why you keep hearing from me, even when the topics get a bit uncomfortable. If you've got thoughts, feedback, or want to get involved, reach out at any time. You can email info@masterintegrator.com.au or find us on LinkedIn. Thanks again to our sponsors, Integrate Unlimited, Colosseum, and Connected Magazine for making this episode possible. Thanks for listening to Master Integrator. I'm Paul Skelton. I'll see you next time.